Hello and welcome to the Buckcast, episode 5, with special guest Ned.
Hello, I'm back for another round, guys. I told you I was going to be around many times to come. And we actually have an extra person with us this time around.
Hello, it's Kirby, your boy.
He was actually here a few episodes back. I wasn't there that time, but now we have all three of us there.
This is the official first 3-person recording.
Threesome, eh?
Okay, we're stopping
This was
right
a mistake.
there. Absolutely. But anyway, we are actually going to start a new segment before we even continue on with the podcast that me and Buck here actually came up with. It is called Yu-Gi-Oh! Lingo. Now, you might not know if you're not in the know, but there are a lot of different words, phrases, and things in Yu-Gi-Oh! That are just absolute nonsense. Just you don't know these words unless you've played the game to some degree.
Lots of examples, yeah.
Yeah, there are plenty of them. And one of them is just probably the one that is most relevant.
Most popular one is
Most
probably
popular one?
Stratos.
Yes, the Stratos is in archetype Stratos. So by a Stratos, we mean a searcher card that is basically used to search the rest of the archetype. And search in itself is a word, actually, now that I think about it. But we'll get to that the next episode. Maybe we should have started with that one. But now that that's over with, let's go on.
Did you have something in mind you wanted to talk about?
Well, now that I think about it, something we want to talk about this episode.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the segments and stuff, that's going to be a thing we're probably going to start trying out in the future. In the beginning, of course, it was just kind of moving through different people I knew and just kind of basically doing, like both of you have already experienced, the kind of basic sort of interview that then just turns into a conversation. Still got a lot more people primed that eventually will have their episodes. And we've got some quote-unquote drama planned between noted friends and enemies, Jay and Kirby. That is sure to sure to happen in the future. But now that we've got people like the two of you who've already been on before, having more stuff to kind of more structured things to kind of get the conversation started, like having little segments, is probably going to be a thing moving forward. No promises. But for instance, I'm going to credit fully to you, Ned, that the
Yu-Gi-Oh! Lingo.
The Yu-Gi-Oh! Lingo segment. And of course, I had some thoughts about doing I don't know if you all have seen the short I keep getting in my YouTube shorts is what happened today in history. And it's just whatever today's date is. And they talk about historical events. I wondered if we could do a Yu-Gi-Oh! Equivalent.
Yeah, something that recalls the events that are currently happening in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or maybe had happened in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, we talk about what went on. I don't know, maybe it'd probably be this week because we record these roughly weekly.
Yeah.
What happened this week in Yu-Gi-Oh! And this month in years past of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I know, here's the funny thing. When Kirby was telling me about the format he started in, he said a year ago, and then I think I actually talked about a format that happened 2 years ago because time has been so warped for me because of recent world events. I actually still don't remember. I've never been good with actually corresponding Yu-Gi-Oh! Formats to actual dates.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of just a sequence of events. Oh, it was this format, then this format, then this format, this deck, this deck, this deck.
Yeah, for me, if you ask me, what was Toss format, what was Goki format, I can kind of maybe tell you which one came right after the other or before the other. But if you're asking me the exact dates, I do not remember. I'll tell you this much. 2018 was a wild year. Consider one of the worst years for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though it's has the most representation. A year with the most representation from what I've heard. And it's honestly just weird that those two kind of just paired along with each other.
Wasn't it 2018 that was the year of the FTK?
Yeah, the year of the FTK. You had so many FTKs. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Firewall Dragon, dude. Yeah, just thanks so much to Firewall Dragon.
It wasn't even just... The crazy thing is that a lot of them were so completely unrelated. Mm-hmm. The two very notable ones I remember, of course, is Fireball FTK or the Danger FTK or the Darkhold FTK, whatever you wanted to call it.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the Pendulum FTK that had been formed previously that year.
Yeah, and
And
can we
those
talk
two-
about the ABC FTK that happened because of Firewall Dragon again?
That one was pretty funny.
That was just hilarious. But it was so consistent that A got the chop instead of the fucking dragon.
I don't know if you know this, Curry, but at one point, A Assault Core was banned.
No, not banned. Limited.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
But still in the ban list.
It was limited because of quote-unquote ABC, but it was just because, if you don't know, A Assault Core, when it's sent to the graveyard, lets you add a Union monster from grave to hand, which can be another A Assault Core. And then, because of Firewall Dragon's effect, when something that leaves its link point goes away, you can summon something from hand. So you could loop 2 A Assault Cores infinitely. And they looked at that situation and thought, A Assault Core is the problem. Not of the three different
card combo.
cards, the Firewall Dragon, the
Cannon
Cannon Soldier, and the Assault Core. They were like, the problem here is clearly the Assault Core.
Too broken, man. Absolutely
Oh,
way too broken.
gosh.
It still makes your fucking monsters unaffected. It loops itself. It's insane. It's like a Night Assailant all over again.
And then
No,
the
seriousness, no.
the Danger Darkhold one, they were looping like Snow and Grappa, right? Was that the play? I can't
I
actually
don't
remember.
remember exactly what it was, but I think it was something along those lines. Correct us in the comments if there are any comments for these videos at all.
We do have one comment, which is just first gang on several episodes, including one of the Spotify episodes. Because by the way, Spotify has comments if you enable them, which is kind of weird, but that exists. And I have one comment on Spotify, and 2 of the YouTube videos have a single comment, and it's all just first gang. Thank you again to Warrior964 for being such an active commenter.
Quite the active commenter indeed. But I guess we should move on now to talking more about like some of these FTKs now that we're at it. That sounds like such an interesting topic. Might as well go that direction since
FTKs that we remember.
FTKs that we remember, maybe within the past few decades. Now, what are some other FTKs that have happened? Obviously, Magical Scientist FTK, but that was a long time ago. But still, it's so funny how all these FTKs have had to do with cards that tribute to make damage to your opponent.
Well, I remember two times that Exodia was quote unquote competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, sorry. There was the Magical Explosion.
Yeah.
I can't remember. People have done like back research to try to figure out what the most consistent FTKs of all time were.
Yeah.
And one of them was, of course, Frog FTK.
Yes. Frog FTK was insane.
But one of them was, I believe it was a Magical Explosion deck that basically just the amount of spell cards that cycled for spell cards just hit a critical mass. I think this was shortly after the Monarch Treasure that came out.
Mm-hmm. And back then, you could also what's called fail to find target in with your search spells and traps and whatnot.
So you could just dump stuff even if it couldn't
Like,
resolve.
That was back in the time when cards like Crop Circles would have to say, and if you fail to find a target, you take X amount of damage.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about Crop Circles.
Failed to find is one of those weird things.
Yeah. It makes it sound like it was a mechanic that was in the works. Like maybe even an archetype I could at one day go like, yo, if I fail to find a target, I get another different type of plus. But it sounds janky, and it also sounds like something that would just be a ruling nightmare. So I guess they axed it before it even became a thing.
Yeah. Instead, we have this concept in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like quantum physics, where just the cards just know. You don't, but they do. They know. Rhoda, it knows there's no warriors in the deck. You can't activate it.
Yeah.
Oh, are you attempting to summon a monster that would violate there can be only one, but in the process would remove? It knows. It has foreknowledge. It already knows. It doesn't know that, you have a warrior on the field, and at the end you'll have one warrior on the field. It knows you're trying to summon a warrior, and you control a warrior. So that's not going to happen.
I feel like most of these rulings just came into effect because judges just don't want to deal with it. The average Yu-Gi-Oh judge, I would say, probably wasn't university graduate and isn't like a problem somewhere, so they don't have to deal with this crap.
It's just one of those things where any system that is made by people will have these really weird, wacky sort of exceptions. Because like if you learn like math and physics and stuff, there's this kind
now
of
we're getting onto math and physics voice.
there's a consistency there because it's not a person who made up the system. It's just what works and what doesn't work to describe natural phenomena. So there's this kind of basis of just the truth.
Yes.
But then when you take it to something like coding, for instance, coding is just people trying to develop...
We're really trying to get these Yu-Gi-Oh players to quit this podcast. Like, get out of here, Yu-Gi-Oh players. We're here to talk math and words and stuff that you all can't do.
Coding is kind of important now because of...
Oh, God.
To finish my thought, coding, it's like it was just made by people, right? And the rules are basically all arbitrary, and a lot of it has to do with the physical devices, but also those were just made by people. So it's all there's a lot of weird arbitrary stuff that seems to crop its way in that's just kind of like grandfathered in.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that Yu-Gi-Oh is. A lot of the stuff is just the way it is because that's the way it's been, or at the time it made sense, but then they started adding new mechanics and stuff, and suddenly it doesn't make sense, but it's just been grandfathered in. Like the fact that you can, every other mechanic except tributing and fusion can't use face down, but those two can, because that's the way the mechanic used to work.
Those ritual fusions.
That's tributing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But now, if you think about it, like now that these games have all been coded, right? Because now we got Duel Links and we got Master Duel. They have had to code all of the things into a game. And although coding is still a lot of arbitrary stuff, it's a lot less than Yu-Gi-Oh rulings.
Yeah.
So they have to find a way to
make things work. Yeah.
I think it'd be very interesting. I'm sure this already exists, but surely there's a card game that has been built from the ground up to be based on code, to be in the computer. So that all of the new cards they make, they basically, the keywords just are program words
into the actions that are meant for the game.
As long as you type the right problem-solving card text, the system can just throw it into a game and it just works. Yeah. Which maybe someday they could figure out how to do that for Yu-Gi-Oh. That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, it's kind of like Magic, because most Magic cards have special words like Vigilance, Indestructible, and stuff like that.
It's kind of like Master Duel, actually, now I think about it. Like, that's kind of like their starting point. We talked about Master Duel several times in the past. But it does feel like a lot of rulings and things just get solved because of that. Yeah. Because you put it into that system. Like missing the timing. People get explained why their card misses the timing. They get angry about it, and they go like, why are they printing cards that miss the timing?
I think it's really funny when you're playing a Master Duel with a deck that has stuff that misses the timing. Yes. And you know, right? So let's say, like us.
I love how we
all three of us, they're totally more competitive players that understand what missing the timing is. Let's pretend that's what we are. Yeah. So we're playing a strategy, and then something misses the timing. We know it's going to happen, but you still get this pop-up that says, just so you know, that card could have activated if it was worded differently, but it missed the timing. So that won't activate. It reminds you. Yeah. Now, you already knew it was going to miss timing, and you're going to go about your business. But instead, you get a pop-up that tells you why this card was poorly designed.
For me, that's Doppelwarder in Synchro style. It says when it's sent for a Synchro Summon, you can then activate the effect to make 2 Doppel tokens, and it's very specific because it's a when ability.
Yeah, so if it's like sent for a Synchro Summon in the middle of a chain for like, let's say, I don't know, Formula Synchron, you don't get your tokens. Yep. Yeah. So we kind of strayed off a little bit right there, talking about missing the timing and whatnot. But let's go back to the FTK talk. Come on, guys.
The only FTK I ever acknowledged was Soldier Cannon.
Canyon Soldier.
Cannon Soldier, Quibble Hedgehog. Some sort of tribe card that makes you... It's a continuous tribe card that says you cannot banish.
Imperial Iron Wall.
Imperial Iron Walls, and just any tuner. and go that way.
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
one of those guys.
Yeah, you sacrifice a cool hedgehog. Hedgehog comes back from the grave to the field because it's.
I mean, it'd be so hard to like pull off because at that point it's not an FTK. You need to wait to activate the trap card.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's a OTK at that point.
OTK, yeah.
Well, I guess maybe you could have some really, really dumb stuff with Temple of the Kings.
Temple of the Kings. Maybe that was a thing back in the day. I don't know.
That was the only thing I was around for. That's really it.
That sounds funny.
that is quite the setup.
It doesn't take much.
Yeah, because if it goes uninterrupted, I'm gonna go do this fucking what's it called? So 8,000 by 500.
It would take going
20 times. It'd be 20 times. I'd be doing this stuff. I'd be doing this. That activate soldier cannon 20 times in a row to kill you.
I think that would be like.
So you actually played this
4-card combo.
I mean, online, yes. In person, no.
What was the strategy? Was it actually just an OTK where it was just like you just eventually you'll have all the pieces and then you'll OTK them?
Pretty much.
Okay.
That sounds funny.
But yeah, it's a very rare, very rare chance you pull off this. Because the biggest thing about it is you need Imperial Iron Walls face up.
Is it?
Yeah.
Was it built just to be an FTK, or is it like a synchro deck that if you happen to draw the right amount of cards, you can FTK or OTK rather?
I built it as an FTK/OTK deck. I did not care about it. It was simply how fast can you get a tuner, soldier cannon, and Cobalt Hedgehog into the grave.
Now that's interesting.
How fast could I do it?
Like, if there was a card ever again, like that could allow you to activate, like I don't know, let's say a trap card during your turn. Maybe Mercure the Destroyer. Like, didn't he say you can only activate one trap, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's his errata.
Still.
One trap's still a lot.
That's still a lot.
Matters
a
lot.
You can still pull it off. You can go, okay, activate my Imperial Iron Wall. And everything else, I feel like it can be easily set up. Oh. Even with like a 4-card combo, because I just thought about it in my head, would be like tuning, pitching the Cobalt Hedgehog by pure luck.
Tuning does not pitch. Tuning
sends. No, I know. Yes, I know. But
you mill the Cobalt Hedgehog because you're a god.
Because you're a god. And then you go a quick draw, pitch like another card, summon it, normal summon the Canyon Soldier, activate the what's it called?
Well, you pitch the Makira, then the Makira lets you activate the Iron Maul from hand.
Yeah. No, Makira needs to go from field to grave.
Seriously?
Yes, it does.
Oh.
Yeah, they neutered that card completely. They completely destroyed that card.
Oh, wasn't there a... Do y'all remember? You might not remember, but Ned probably remembers. When Makira the Destructor came off before the errata, like I don't remember how
slight period.
Was
it was like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks where unerrataed Makira the Destructor just existed in the game.
A lot of people ignored it, but there were those few weirdos that were like, "Yeah, we need to make an FTK right now and play it in locals."
It was funny because there were a lot of FTKs because Makira pre-errata allows you to do a lot of crazy things. Because you can also play like it also helps you get to the FTK because you can play like Reckless Greed and
Jar of
Greed and all those cards. So as long as you can get it to the graveyard with an Armageddon Knight or a Warrior Digrapher or whatever, then bam, suddenly all of this stuff becomes draw power as well to help you find the other pieces of your FTK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds hilarious.
It was very funny that for 2 weeks.
Oh, now I think about it, it's like wasn't the FTK something like we make a soul summon Armageddon Knight from deck and then like send Mercury the Destructor. Then you can start triggering all your traps.
I think there were a couple variations. One of them was just in his old deck. Classic Dark Warrior that summoned Armageddon Knight to dump the Makira. Yeah. And then you just, again, had all these trap cards that let you draw cards. Yeah. So then you'd be able to find whatever it was that was going to let you.
Like, I know one of my buddies, now I remember, tried it with Exodia. Just so he would draw Exodia. Because there's so many draw cards that are traps. Yeah. There's the Legacy of Yada. There's Jar of Greed. There's Reckless Greed. That's already like 9 cards right there.
That's 9, and one of them is a draw 2. One of them is Pot of Greed.
One of them is literally Pot of Greed. Prod.
I think there are also some conditional ones as well. Yeah. Isn't Balance of Judgment a trap card?
I don't remember.
I don't think that one, but if you give your opponent tokens, that one might work.
Yeah.
Anyway, which speaking of tokens, another very funny. This is a FTK I tested a lot.
Yeah.
Which is is it called Bish Balkan?
Bish Balkan FTK, yeah.
The guy who summons a bunch of tokens.
Yeah. Like the thing that happened to Distant Coder like twice, and as he was talking about it especially, That was funny.
I think
I
it's
watched
still
that video.
legal. It's just bad. But I remember I tested that a lot. I tested it using the ritual heretic setup.
I don't know what that is.
So you would ritual summon and you trip it a heretic as cost.
Yes.
To summon, I think it had to be a level 6 ritual monster. I'm not sure. No, it was 8. I don't remember. Anyway, but because you attributed heretic, it summoned a dude from the deck.
Yeah.
And then that would set you up to have your rank 6 or whatever it was.
Yeah, Tom.
I don't know if we were summoning it. I genuinely am struggling to remember. But it was basically
you up.
needed. I'm sorry. You basically just all you had to do to FTK was summon Bish Vulcan and have a certain amount of dragons in the graveyard. Because unfortunately the way that particular FTK was set up, you couldn't actually do 8K.
Yeah.
By itself.
Yeah.
It could only do like 7,000 damage, so you had to get an extra 1,000 damage, and you did that with the Agave Dragon.
Yeah, Agave Dragon.
That just for some reason does 100 burn damage for Dragon in the graveyard.
Yeah.
So the heretics both helped you facilitate summoning. Oh yeah, you summoned
at
the
least
level
you didn't
8
say cowboy
tuner.
for game, man. You have to cowboy for game.
You summoned the level 8 tuner from the decks, and then you'd be able to synchro summon Bish Vulcan using your ritual monster plus the tuner. Make your Bish Vulcan do the whole thing. But now you have 2 dragons in the graveyard, and then over the course of the combo, you'd send like several more of them from the extra deck that were just part of the combo to do the damage, right? And then I think the really, really annoying thing is that you had to get lucky and also have drawn a dragon to pitch off of something to hit the 8K.
Yeah.
That deck was both very frustrating and very amusing.
It sounds like both.
It was
like,
one of the ones where
frustrating.
You couldn't look at your hand and know whether or not you'd be able to do it. I mean, some hands you could, but a lot of them it was like, I just have to start, and then if I get a lucky mill or something, then it will be an FTK. If not, I just lose.
Okay. This is probably a more obscure FTK just because of like the time frame and like the amount of time it was available for. So not many people might have known about this one. But do you guys remember the Asalapiscu, FTK that came up during the middle of TOS format? Like, any of you remember that?
That sounds so familiar, but I cannot remember it. Give me some effects.
It cropped up once. It was literally just Dragon Link, but instead of being Dragon Link, they were trying to FTK you with Asalapiscu.
Was it? There was a Dragon Link deck. Was it the one where they were trying to resolve the big one that does 2K damage?
Yes, they
twice, and then they did 4,000 damage or something else.
Yes, I don't remember exactly what else they used to do 4,000 damage, but it was Asalapiscu actually.
Yeah, okay.
Asalapiscu. Yeah, they were trying to like trigger Asalapiscu so that they could deal 4K damage. Something like that.
So it was just a card that just did like half your opponent's life points. I think.
The funny thing about this is that they came up twice, and in different forms, but in the same deck. Like the first time was around like Dragon Link format. I mean, not Dragon Link format. It was around TOS format, like middle of it, I think. That this just came out of nowhere, and people were like, "Oh, look at that, an FTK," and they were like, "But Danger Dark World FTK is so much better." And then it just like got lost into the ether. And then the second time was again with Dragon Link, like towards the middle of like 2020 format, like summer, where like there was all this like people were throwing Eldritch, the Golden Lords at each other, and like synchro summoning and Eldritch again, and summoning a bunch of Emancipators with like their block dragons doing all this stuff. And then somebody was like, but I could FTK. I could with Asalapiscu again. They would like equip it from deck with like a Union carrier. That was hilarious, dude.
The Dragon Link combo I remember was that you would equip Asalapiscu from the deck using Union Carrier to something, and then you'd link it off, and then it would hit the graveyard, and it'd have your opponent's life points.
Yeah.
And then there's just one of the rockets does 2,000 damage. It's a level 7, so it's like really awkward, and you almost never play it.
Yeah.
But they just part of the combo, they just looped 2 of them.
Yeah.
To do the last 4K damage.
4K damage, yep.
Yep, I remember that.
That was dumb.
that was a deck that existed.
Yeah.
I don't think did it actually top? I think maybe
it did
once.
top before. Like I think it did, but it was like an irrelevant because again, 2020, there wasn't any official tournaments. Like again, you guys remember how Link Cross got done in by Skype? Well, basically the same thing. That's why we got that mediocre ban list in the middle of summer because there was no actual official tournaments.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, sorry about that. They just came out of that.
No, that reminds me of. I talked about the. Because again, I played during TOS, and I remember the Danger Dark World FTK. And one thing that I remember about it specifically is how brief it all felt to me. I want to compare memories here.
Yeah.
So I remember it was one tournament happened,
I feel
and
like it was a month.
one guy, one or two people topped with it.
Yeah.
And everyone, what I perceived it was, a lot of people were like, wow, what a crazy high rolly FTK. That's kind of funny that this managed to top. And then the next event, like half the top cut was Danger Dark World.
Yeah.
And then immediately after that tournament, it just got banned out of existence.
Yeah. It was like prime time for a ban list around that period, which I think that was the reason why it got axed so easily was because
it was just already the next ban list.
It was the next ban list, and they were like, I guess Konami must have been something along the lines, thinking something along the lines of, this cannot be. It can't stay.
I imagine
here.
they were in panic mode.
Yeah, it's like we're not gonna have an FTK tier like a tier 0 FTK. No, we're done.
Well, that's one of the things about it was that also it was just a good going second deck.
Yeah,
that was the main reason why it was so crazy.
Yes,
was because sure you get FTK and that was the primary win condition,
but you can still just kill your opponent.
If you went second, Bigfoot's just big.
Yeah,
he's just a big guy. Grapha's 27. Now you could just throw out enough big dudes and Topologic Bomber to pop the board and stuff that you could just push through for game pretty consistently going second. Especially with how, I don't want to say too low power level, but comparatively to now, TOS was pretty low power level. So these kind of going second, beat your head index had a niche where they could genuinely, actually push through the boards.
Yeah.
It wasn't like what would come after where it's like you're putting up all these interruptions. No, it was like if you can push through a few interruptions, you can OTK them.
Yeah. It wasn't just a build-a-board workshop with like 20 traps in the back row too. No, it wasn't something along those lines. It was. I mean, there were those decks, but those decks were generally Dragon Link, which didn't have a back row like to back it up. It was just like, oh, now I get done in by Dark Row no more, or and then phase and then the main phase 1 Nibiru timed before they could get their Savage Dragon effect off.
We gonna get copyright struck for this.
Oh my god.
That'd be kind of funny.
We can just cut it. It's fine.
Cut out this. I'll let you figure it out. You're editing this one. You can figure it out.
Damn it. Well, anyway. Guess we better make it small. So, Kirby, you're here. Do you remember any any FTKs? Besides
that's the one I mentioned. No,
yeah.
I guess if remembering from episode 2 with Buck, I started when I entered my local college.
Yeah.
So I knew about Yu-Gi-Oh! I knew it existed, but I played really casually with my friends with the random cards we had around our homes, and that was it. That was my entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience outside of the shows. I went to my local college. I met some lovely people there.
Yeah.
Got me more into the game. Wasted more money. And here I am now, being a more competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Player with my Exorcister deck.
Exorcisters might as well be an FTK when they fucking just like go shotgun D-shifter.
That's something we actually talked about. Is we felt like more things should be called what they are, which is FTKs. Like when Calamities was.
It wasn't a literal
FTK, but it's essentially and
one.
Should probably be treated as such.
I feel like it has to do a lot with like how powerful lingering effects are, like Abyss Dweller, like True King of all Calamities, like how you just mentioned, Shockmaster back in its day, and all those other cards, like they were just so oppressive and powerful, simply because they have that lingering effect that once it resolves, you're just boned, absolutely destroyed. You can't activate anything, you can't summon anything, you can't do anything, you can't send anything to graveyard because of D-shifter. I feel like all those effects are just in a league of their own. They're like overpowered as heck, and honestly, I don't like them. I'm gonna be frank here. I don't like Dweller shutting you out the entire game. I don't like Droll shutting you out from grabbing cards the entire game. I don't like just one card resolving means that you don't get to play anymore.
I think there's some nuance here. First of all, like Dweller, and has had many formats where it was totally oppressive, and other formats where it was just good.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, Dweller kind of flips a little bit, but I think about, like, for instance, Emancipator format, right? They had a Dweller and 5 negates. Like, obviously this is absolutely broken. This is an FTK. No question about it. But then we also have ones where it's like Dweller Roar. That's not an FTK. The Dweller itself isn't. True King of all calamities by itself is essentially an FTK. It's made worse by the fact that at that time, if you remember, they were Chuche popping their own calamities to force it to resolve.
Force it to resolve.
Through an imperm.
You literally had to draw a droplet with a trap for them to not have any sort of response. And even then, they could, like, if you just didn't.
Even then, sometimes they had the 2 calamity board.
2 calamity board.
So you needed to use a trap card and something else and a monster.
During
and
your
now
draw
suddenly, now you have 3 cards. You
People
still
were-
have to OTK, or they're going to just set it up again.
What were they doing? They were like, people were activating XYZ Encore during their draw phase so that people just wouldn't have that future response. XYZ Encore got bought out and it was at $10 because of True King of all calamities. That is insane.
In Rongo Bongo format.
Rongo Bongo was the same thing. Yeah, because again, XYZ Encore doesn't really target the monster, it just makes them return it.
It targets the opponent.
The opponent. It makes them return it. It's Herald of the Abyss all over again. But anyway, funny enough, that was another card played during that time.
I vividly remember during, what format was that? It was somewhere in Salad. Rongo Bongo was still playable.
Yeah.
That I remember some dude at my locals Rongo Bongoing me a couple times.
Rongo Bongo, huh? I guess that's another pseudo FTK because you can't summon.
Rongo Bongo is back when that was actually a thing.
I remember. I think I might be wrong in this, but I think that Subterra Guru had already come out by that point. That when it was still around, so it was literally like the only deck that could play around it because it's set and then it used the effect of Hidden City to flip it face up.
Yeah,
that was funny.
That did work, didn't it?
Yeah, that did work. But again, terrible.
Well, you remember
all these
when Master Duel started, that Rongo Bongo was a thing again? That people figured out? When Master Duel...
Oh, yeah. Rongo Bongo was a thing.
And then right now, I'm pretty sure, didn't they ban Gossip Shadow instead of the Bongo?
Instead of the Bongo.
Yes,
you can still make Rongo with like 4 materials and I don't know. Not Six Samurai. Six Samurai is the one that needed the Gossip Shadow, but I think in Phantom Knights, if you get enough force in the field, you can still do it.
As a wind spellcaster myself, I found it highly offensive.
Yeah.
Because I actually used Gossip Shadow in Magic Spectres because it's a wind spellcaster.
Yeah.
With a huge butt too. It's awesome. It's like it is
2600 defense.
Huge booty, bruh.
A huge booty. It was a rank 3, which you could make in Magic Spectres with your, because they're all 3s or 4s.
Yeah.
And also it's a wind spellcaster, so if worse came to worse, you could tribute it for all your cards.
Yeah.
And then I'm playing Master Duel. I'm like, oh, this is a fun thing to play to beat people in gold because, people in gold are pretty bad.
Play Eldritch.
I have long been surprised by the kind of things I would face in lower ranks if I took a break from the game or something and then I come back to Master Duel. I'm like, how did you get this far, Blue Eyes player? How did you... My previous opponent was playing Ignite FTK in this gold rank, and then the next guy was playing bad Blue Eyes. It wasn't even a very good Blue Eyes build. It was like summon alternative, set a trap card, like Ring of Destruction. I'm like, how did you get here? How did you get this far?
By dueling you continuously, man.
By dueling me.
Dueling you continuously. But nah, in all due seriousness, I will say that all these FTKs, whether it be in Master Duel and the TCG or even OCG, I know we didn't mention any of the OCG FTKs, and that's because like they're just in a different dimension. There's too many of them. You could even say that just these boards that are being made by Tierlement right now are essentially an FTK. Screw that card. He's showing me an Nibiru right now. But
the giant rock.
Yeah, the giant rock. The rock is coming.
The
Dwayne
inboard-
Johnson wants you.
The inboard of every solid combo.
Yeah,
The Rock.
the rock. But
Speaking of,
to be fair, I didn't finish my comment. Let me finish. Just
please
kidding.
go on, please.
I feel like Konami has mostly taken good action in dealing with most of these FTKs, whether they be pseudo or actual FTKs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's taken them a little longer because they're a poor indie company that needs to make their money.
I mean, you're saying that, but quite frankly, I don't want Konami to hear this shit and be like, shut them down.
What are you talking about? What are they going to do?
Shut
Japanese
up.
company.
Stop right there.
The Japanese companies aren't going to, I mean, I'm not going to say anything too much, but it's like, if we can complain about game balance. That's
Can we?
part of the thing. That's part of the whole thing. If we can't complain about game balance, then there is no Yu-Gi-Oh sphere for talking about anything, because that's the whole point of a card game.
We can't complain, yes, but his comment about how they're in poor indie company needing money, I think that might draw a few heads here.
I have a take actually about this. Maybe you two can inform me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I
think if Konami was upfront about, because I remember the reason I'm thinking about this is because recently there has been a lot of discussion about them not being very communicative about ban lists, right?
Yeah.
Recently, as of the recording, a lot of people have been talking about how they used to basically describe.
There's been
why they
many
did something.
videos, especially about like the 2012 article. Yeah.
But what I've been thinking is, let's just be honest with ourselves. It's a for-profit company. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we get to enjoy it and it's so big is in large part because it's a for-profit company. If they went on and legitimately said, we're banning these cards to promote the sales of new product, I wouldn't be mad. I'd understand that that's just part of the thing. The problem is when they come in and say, we're doing such a good job balancing the game, when clearly they're just pushing product.
They're just pushing product.
But if they want to be upfront about it and say, we are making this hit in part for game balance, but also to make sure we move product, I would understand. I'd be like, that is completely fair. That you are a company and you have to do this.
You have to make profit, yeah.
Isn't it a corporation? Isn't it a publicly traded company?
I don't remember exactly if it's like a corporation.
I don't think Konami is just a corporation, because I know where I work at, we have like 2 Konami games. One is Guitar Hero, and another one is Sound.
Is Guitar Hero Konami?
I didn't know that. Is it?
It says on the thing, on the side of the board says Konami. Like the red thing we get, like say, you open up what's it called, that life point counter game we got. Neuron.
Oh.
Yeah, Neuron. It's just like Konami in red bold, and it says cuts to it. Yeah, there's that red bold symbol Konami on Guitar Hero, and another game called Sound Vortex 4, I believe.
Interesting. Well, I knew Konami made video games. Like I played Gradius back in that thing, but I didn't know that they made Guitar Hero. That's a little bit of a interesting.
Oh, I think what I'm reading here is that Konami makes hardware for guitar. I know that. I think this is actually what the origin of the company was. Is that they made, arcade games. They made arcade booths and stuff.
That makes sense, because
I think what they did is that they would get licensed by other companies to make arcade games of their games.
That would make sense, because one thing it just says Guitar Hero Arcade.
So that might be why Konami is involved.
That's possibly the reason. But anyway, okay.
Apparently they make
that was completely off track.
I mean, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
I'm sure a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players like to think about Konami and what they do.
Mm-hmm. Like, you just mentioned it a little bit ago, but I definitely, I know it's probably something that's not going to happen again because of how bad the last time that they did communicate whatever they wanted to say about the ban list.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like it if in the future we had some sort of ban list, like communication, like some sort of I don't know, Konami saying why they're banning these cards, even if it is something like along the lines of, yo, we need to push product. Maybe not exactly in those words, but just like due to like an increase in like people just playing Dragon Link endlessly. We decided to like ban some of these cards to push newer product. And
wording is definitely important here.
Yeah,
I think one wording that's kind of like a catch-all that they can use that is good for them and probably makes people feel warm inside is if they say we're protecting people's investments. You know, I find that debate. First of all, any Yu-Gi-Oh player who genuinely thinks they're making investments kind of whack. Personally, I think that's kind of
don't
a...
shout me out just yet, bro. Stop it, man.
Anything volatile like a card game to me feels like you shouldn't really get mad at Konami if your quote-unquote investment didn't pan out. But again, if we're just talking about ways they can phrase things to not get as much backlash for trying to be profitable, is if they just say we are protecting people's investments who have bought the new product by hitting all of these older decks, that is probably going to go over pretty well with people because people like that sort of lingo from them.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to like going back to the FTK talk, to getting rid of these FTK-esque cards, like just like the ones that just ruin your day, just keep you from playing at all. Thank God, like Konami, thank God that you got rid of True King of All Calamities. Thank God that you got rid of like Rongo Maniad. And thank God that you're maybe one day going to like grace us with the joy of seeing Mystic Mine in the ban list.
Not yet, please. I just started playing it. I really
shut
don't.
up.
No.
Get out of here.
No.
Typical Exorcister player relying on his non-archetype cards.
It's typical.
I just bought it. I just now playing it, and it works wonders.
Typical anti-meta player.
Anti-meta player, yeah.
Sorry that sorry that I hate on tier elements because Jay makes me hate himself so much. Fuck Jay, bro.
Too many times did I get Winder passed. I'm going to Mystic Mine pass him.
Does he even play one?
Yes,
he does. He does play Winder.
He does us to death.
And either starting to do with him, either I D-shifter him or I Mystic Mine him. Either way, he's not having a fun time with me.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck with him. Fuck Jay, bro.
We're gonna have that episode next time. Jay versus Kirby here.
Yeah, I think probably you'll probably come on again. Yeah, you're gonna come on again next week, and that'll be after the release of Jay's episode. So you can more directly confront his takes if you want.
And then I guess later on we can do a first duel on the podcast, Jay versus Kirby.
It'd be funny though if we don't record any, like it's just audio. Y'all are just playing. And like I'm talking to you two, but it's like has nothing. The game's just going on. Y'all are like saying the card effects. I think that'd be kind of fun. Anyway, I want to talk about specifically back to this whole quote unquote investment thing. People, if you buy a tier 1 deck and then it gets hit really briefly after that, people tend to get mad. Reasonably so. It's very expensive, and you expect this deck to pull you along for a little while, right? Like if someone bought tiers right now, and then next ban list, they absolutely neutered tiers, a lot of people would be very mad. But
what was the OCG ban list on tiers again?
Not enough.
No,
absolutely not enough.
But if you bought it, let's say some new cards facilitated in FTK, and you spent a lot of money getting these new cards to build your FTK, when that gets banned, people don't seem to throw a fit about it because it's an FTK. There's this understanding among people that if it's an FTK, it's going to get hit. You're not going to get the same mileage out of it you're going to get from a more standard tier 1 deck. I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Like, this is a sort of example as to, like, now that we're getting more into that, like, that power dynamic in which if your deck is too strong or has too much potential or is just broken off the wazoo with, like, what it allows you to do, it will eventually get hit. Probably not the entire deck, but sometimes it's just like one card in the deck. Like I know I've been mentioning Dragon Link so much. I don't have any adversity towards like Dragon Link players, but like LP got banned because they had just like the most erroneous card design ever.
Yeah.
Which was just I get to tutor anything out of the deck unconditionally.
Yep.
I mean not completely unconditional. Yeah.
Summon Sorceress. You think they would have learned, but no.
They would have learned. No. We get to just do it again.
And now we have Gigantic. Wow.
I mean, at least Gigantic.
Even less.
At least Gigantic locks you into level 2, Link 2.
Yes,
and,
at least, thank goodness it has an actual restriction. Too bad it doesn't matter.
I mean, for now. But we don't know what they might hit in that deck in the future. I imagine
I
it is going to get hit.
Well, isn't Sprite getting a new Link 2 monster?
It is getting a new Link 2. Sprint, I think.
I think
Sprite Sprint. Yeah, it's basically their Foolish Barrier / Lavabo Chain, however you want to call it.
Doesn't it also banish cards?
I don't remember that effect, but it might.
Yeah, because I think it comes out in what's called Darkwing Blast.
It does come out in Darkwing Blast.
So
Next set. Shoutouts to the new set, boys. I'm waiting for my Darkwings.
Darkwing Blast didn't. It has I keep hearing about it. It seems like it's got some pretty neat,
well,
neat stuff in it.
It comes out with, of course, Blackwing support, the new deck. What's it called? The Kirschla? What is it fucking called? Castrala. And then some other mind support here. And the only really card that I'm interested in is Lady of the Labyrinth for my Labyrinth deck. Again, sponsors are waiting to help me pay for that deck still.
It returns it to the hand.
It returns it to the hand.
But,
it returns your opponent's cards.
And then, of course, Sprite support being the new Link 2 coming out of that set. So,
yeah. It's got a lot of different support, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
A lot of micro and macro types of support.
Doesn't it make Fur Hire kind of playable?
It makes Fur Hire playable. Fur Hire is super playable, exceptionally with Magnamut being able to get one of their play starters to hand. But aside from that, what was I saying earlier before we...
You saying that Drytron sucks?
No, I was saying there are plenty of cards out there that have flawed card design. And so they're, within time, neutered or axed in the ban list so that they will no longer be able to be abused in certain decks. Now, having said that, there are some cards that are ring bells to that, such as Drytron Alpha, but like they're not enough. Like you've seen Drytron in the meta for like the past year and a half, but they haven't received a direct hit to the deck, mostly because it just doesn't have that power level that other decks have. I would like to see it like I'd like to say that Drytron's more like a Dragon Link deck. Again, mentioning the Dragon Link. More like a build-a-board workshop that gets eaten alive by Dark Ruler no more.
I think it's kind of funny because in a weird way, it seems like it almost went through the same phases where Dragon Link, they had their FTK.
Yeah.
And it's like Drytron, they had the Herald pseudo FTK. And then as time goes on, they both become kind of, a little bit more reasonable in the kind of inboards they're making and what they lose to.
Yeah.
As both the counters have been better made and the deck's power levels have been reduced. Although technically, Ava's banned, so that's a really big hit to Drytron. But
definitely a huge hit to Drytron. But even then, I more like say that these cards aren't ever going to be at the same competitive level that they used to be, and it's because of just the game's power creep. We talked about this last time when we were in our last session. The game just power creeps eventually.
Yeah. Like, everything gets power creep.
Everything gets power creeped. The set just needs to be so much better. Tier limits, I like to see them as the new Drytrons but for fusions, they just don't have that restriction that made Drytron so weak. That kept it from going into the next border, into the new frontier, if you might say, which they can. Tier limits definitely can reach that frontier, but before they do it, I assure you, they're going to get neutered. Those cards are way too powerful.
One thing I do want to talk about, because it's something I prepped forever ago and never had a chance to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So Drytron is weird because it kind of takes the whole ritual mechanic and completely centralizes it around itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could say that Tears is very similar, that it's taking all of fusion. But unlike Drytron, you can literally summon any ritual monster with almost no exception. If any ritual in the game, you can find a way to make it in Drytron.
Except Thousand Eyes Restrict. No. Was it Relinquished? Except Relinquished. You can't make Relinquished.
Okay. So there's one exception. Whereas with tiers, I have a list here of everything you can summon with the tier effect monsters effects. And it's not a very long list. If you, like, even using Swamp King, first of all, we got classic stuff like Winda, Brave Neos, a bunch of the fossil cards, Garuda, Gymnite, Amethyst. I don't know who's going to make that. A card that's going to come out that actually might be relevant is Grapha, Dragon Overlord of the Dark World. That's an OCG card. I have no idea when we're going to get that card. But it's just a negate that if you're playing Swamp King, you can just summon for free with Swamp King plus a
I feel
tier.
like before we get that card, they're going to get hit in the list some way or form.
Probably.
Yeah.
Then we got Caliga, Labellion, Masquerade, Metal Foes, Adamanti, and Crimsonite. Millenniumize Restrict, Mudragon Swamp, Plant, Chimerophlasia, Dragostapelia, Starving, Venomy Dragon, all the tier elements, and then Time Wizard. And that's it.
Wait, Time Wizard, what?
Yeah, there's a Time Wizard fusion. Time Wizard of Tomorrow, which is basically just worse Dark Hole.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is it the the mallet?
No, Time Wizard of Tomorrow. It's like a fusion monster that was released.
And there's a couple little weird things, like if you have Zombie World up, I'm pretty sure you can make Dragon Necro.
Yeah.
But it's like the actual list of things you can make with them isn't very large. It just happens to include some of the best fusion monsters ever printed.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like
Caliga and Winda.
It might not have every fusion monster in the game because that would be kind of insane if you had that many fusion monsters, which is
the best fusion monster.
I wouldn't say there's a best fusion monster, but there's a good fusion monster for every situation.
That's true. There's a lot of utility in fusion monsters.
Definitely a lot of utility because it's a very supported type. It's been in the game since its inception.
Beginning, yeah.
Blue White Ultimate Dragon, let's go.
Yeah, that came out way later. That didn't come out immediately after the game came to us. It came out like in 2007, 2006. But bottom line is, there's so many better fusion monsters than there are ritual monsters. And that's probably what's, like, at least in that comparison between Drytron and Tier Elements, is that's what's making Tier Element push that borderline towards like the pseudo FTK-ish point of their playability. And it's that they're just so powerful. They can make link monsters after they're done fusion summoning. Yeah. They can normal summon and special summon normal summonable monsters, which allows them to play the Griffin Rider package. That's what I'm calling it. I'm not calling it an adventure package. the Griffin Rider package. Uh-huh. And it allows them to play all these other broken cards if and whenever like the time arises. Like they can just slap an Omni Negate into their deck out of nowhere.
Well, that's like, in a way I kind of have the same qualm with both Tier and Drytron.
Yeah.
Which is that both of them have, well, Tier really doesn't even have a restriction, but the restrictions on them are too weak. It feels like they could have been crazy strong and been infinitely more reasonable if they just had a better lock on them. Like, for instance, if Tiers locked you into just fusions, it'd still be crazy.
Yeah, you could play Branded with
it'd
Tiers.
Still be insane. Branded Tiers is still a very good deck. Mm-hmm. And probably with some innovation could be Tier 1 if, that is how Tiers were designed. Mm-hmm. But because it's so generic, there's just so much more you can do with it. And the same, for me, Drytron feels a similar boat. It's like you can do so much more than just summon a big ritual monster because you can go into your Beatrice and you can go into all these crazy extra deck monsters. Whereas if it was a bit more restrictive,
we would just get absolutely eaten alive by hand traps at that point.
That's true. One of the Drytron's resilience kind of comes from its non-archetype extra deck monsters that it can go into.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they could have designed it differently to fit better in a harder
I don't know, dude. I'm going into Vanity's Rooter nowadays. I'm not really making any extra deck monsters.
Yeah, well, that could just have been the way it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like having stuff that's kind of cartoonishly segregated is kind of good. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, I can't remember. There's not a lot of them, but there are a couple things that literally lock you into the archetype. Not even a type attribute. It's like, no, you can only summon vampires or something. Yeah. You can literally only summon stuff from that archetype.
Yeah.
Which, those decks, I'm pretty sure, have never been good. But
Existers.
Wait, Exo Sisters have that
Yes,
lock?
Martha.
They have that lock.
Martha-
There you
goes
go.
Yeah, Martha says if you use her
They're
effect,
learning. Konami's
you
learning.
are immediately locked into only Exo Sister, which means I can't go on like trying to use it Gaga Cowboy or Axe Code, Ram.
Magnifica might have done the last damage in that YCS, but that does not mean that it was Magnifica that won the duel. It was that lingering pseudo FTK effect that kind of won that duel.
I do wonder what's going to happen to Shifter. Because Shifter is a card that has been so instrumental in combating these crazy strong strategies like Tears, but at the same time, it's such a win button that it feels unfair. It's one of those weird things where it's kind of a accepted evil in a sense.
I mean, you say that, but I know from my experience, Exorcers themselves, they cannot win in one turn. Unless their hand is godly, they will 9 times out of 10 not win the turn they go into Magnifica.
Mm-hmm.
They won't win. Which gives tier elements the chance to counterattack, and if I can't...
The Shifter just buys them time.
It buys me time to do something for my board, tear your board up a little bit here and there, put in some pitch damage in there. Mm-hmm. Other than that, you get a whole turn to come back at me.
It's kind of the same thing that it does for Flunder. It just buys you enough time to get your setup going.
I mean, Flunder doesn't just buy you time. Against certain decks, he just wins because Bear Stat just won't have a card sometimes.
Yeah, Bear Stat do be a card.
Well, except against them Speedroids, man, dude. Speedroids don't care. They're just gonna bust you up.
I love Speedroids. I wish Speedroids were okay.
Yeah.
Have you read their boss, the Kite Drake?
Kite Drake is literally a nuke. It's JD on legs.
It's JD or Dark Ruler
Dark Ruler no more? Yeah.
And it's terrible. It's
Kite
so
Drake
sad.
is such a great card, but like its archetype is trash. Like I don't know if you watched this video. It was from MBT. I don't know if I can say his name right here.
Yeah, you can. I don't care.
But it was a video that was talking about all the broken, busted, and impossibly just off the wazoo cards that are out there in the game that are in the shittiest archetypes possible. Like, just look at Ursartic. They have a field spell that says draw 7, but you don't play Ursartic. Why? Because they're garbage. They're bad. They're terrible. They're not a good archetype.
I think that might be one of my favorite things about Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Is that we have, like, there are decks that unironically have Pot of Greed in them.
Yeah.
And that are just absolutely terrible.
Rare value.
What?
Rare value.
Rare value, yeah.
Rare value.
There it is. There are so many crazy, like, then we have, like, Snake Rain. That's just, like, a Foolish Burial for 5. Like, we have so many strategies that have these just absolutely insanely busted cards in them in any other context. One of the funny things is that, in a sense, Stratos has become that. And if you remember Stratos, to tie back to Stratos, I guess.
Yeah.
When Stratos came out, it was
the card.
It was the card that it was absolutely insane. It was
tutored every single hero monster.
It tutored anything you could possibly want at the time.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the card
pool for heroes isn't that great.
The card pool for heroes hasn't kept up with power creep.
No.
So now it's like, sure, what are you going to search? Ferris? I mean, Ferris is okay. I mean, what are you going to do? Lock you into heroes? That's the whole problem. Anything that all the best cards lock you into heroes, and now suddenly you're having to end on heroes? Bleh.
I mean, maybe if heroes finally got a monster negate at least.
If they had one monster negate, suddenly that deck would actually be something.
Yeah. Negate Nibiru, sure.
God, I hate Nibiru.
Yeah, yes you do, Mr. I summoned 3 times.
God, I forgot what card it was. It's like Exorcister Capardarian, where it is called. It's a contained spell card, but here's the issue. It must see the Ixie summon first.
Somebody's gonna flare you in the comments for calling it that.
I don't know. I don't know how to read correctly.
In a million years, if someone comes back to this, goes back to watch this, and they'll be like, "He pronounced that Exorcister card wrong." I think this is the end of Kirby's career. Cancel him.
Canceling him, absolutely.
Bro, I can't read, bro.
Kirby claims to be a connoisseur of attractive female Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but doesn't even know the names of Exorcister cards. Cancel him.
Bro, I get it. I only play like female archetype cards. Okay.
I talked with some people after the episode about specifically you and like talking to you. I thought it was some of the things you said, you tee yourself up very well to be insulted, and then I did so. some of the things you said were the perfect tee up, and then I tried to understand what you were saying, and then you just kept digging deeper. You just kept putting yourself deeper in that hole, and I was like,
You see, here's the thing. I don't know any better.
fair enough.
Okay, fair enough.
The one that came to mind was talking about just attractive female cards. And you were teeing yourself up perfectly for me to just absolutely bash you for being a simp or something. But instead, I was like, yeah, you know what? Personally, even I, my infallible self, will perhaps want to play a cute girl deck instead of something else, as long as they're
Nah, dude,
similar.
I'm all machine.
Dragon maids, baby.
machine
Dragon
only.
maids.
You're only gonna catch me with the machines.
Yeah, a robotic snake.
What if they
robotic snakes? Let's go.
But what if? Hear me out. Cyborg women.
No.
Isn't it like no? I said like
Dinomorph is
like,
already kind of like that.
They do be kind of like that.
Yeah. But anyway, well, that's kind of everything I had in me for the time being. We are getting close to our time.
There's a lot of editing that you have to do, though.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely a lot of editing coming in on my side.
I'm very glad you get to edit this one instead of me.
It's not. I'll tell you this much: it's gonna take a while before it comes out.
Shout out for Kirby for bringing up the audio here, because y'all's computer were not cutting for shit.
Shut up! I just didn't bring my computer. But anyway, yeah.
Yes, trying out borrowing Ned's mic here to see if we get better audio quality. We'll see what happens.
We'll definitely see what happens in the recording. But
yeah, and
that's it for now, boys. We kind of I think we've exhausted ourselves as far as talking about Yu-Gi-Oh's.
Yeah, and I got to figure out how to send this shit over to you.
Appear behind the curtain.
I gotta figure out how to send this shit.
Oh, sorry. I want to. Before we end, I do feel the need to call you out specifically, Ned.
Yes.
Why do you always try to? I want to be very clear. Podcasts are a very casual way of interfacing with people, and with the wide web and such.
That's it. This is getting cut. This is not gonna make it to the video. I'm sorry.
You don't have to make hands. You can just tell me, dude, you're being too loud, or hey man, blah 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 blah. Every time
this is definitely getting cut.
Bro, shut the fuck up, bro.
You know what? What's gonna happen is that there's just going to be my voice, Kirby's voice, and your voice is gonna be gone on the audio.
Wait,
I'm not even in the episode.
Can you separate his voice out of the audio?
I don't think I can.
It would take forever.
It would take way too forever.
We would have to literally go in and just cut every single time I talk out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're all multi-talking each other. So how do you cut just your audio out?
No.
Because I don't think this software has the ability to do so.
It does not have the ability to do so. That's why I will not be actually doing it. I'm just going to cut this entire segment.
Bro, keep me in.
You're gone, Kirby. Vanished to the Shadow Realm. But anyway,
I think that's everything.
That is everything. We will now banish all of ourselves into the Shadow Realm. See you later, boys.
See ya, and goodbye.
Oh shit, you paused it.